Hi everybody. Our favorite CIA agent John Kiriakou has finally solved the case about JFK. God damn, it took so long, but John, he got the job done.
About this. When I got out of prison, I struck up a friendship with Oliver Stone. He bought the rights to my he bought the rights to one chapter of my first book, and we sold a show idea together to the History Channel that they never made. But we became friendly and remained friendly. And he put me on the spot one day. I was in his office and he said to me, you're not one of those guys that doesn't believe that the CIA killed Kennedy, are you? And I said, I think there were probably elements of the CIA that were involved in killing Kennedy, but in terms of being a CIA operation to kill Kennedy, no, I've never believed that. He said, you're so full of shit. And I said, no, I genuinely, I don't believe that the CIA killed Kennedy. And he said, who do you think killed Kennedy? I said, it was probably George Ioannidis, who was kind of a rogue CIA officer stationed in Miami. He was very close to the Cubans. And I think that we probably should take a closer look at him. But I said at the same time, I don't think we've really gotten to the bottom of where the mob was on all this. And I said, we hear these stories about Carlos Marcello. We hear stories about Santo Trafficante and the things that they said in the immediate aftermath, like we finally got him, and then the ties between Chicago and Jack Ruby. I said, I just don't think that's ever been fully investigated. He got genuinely angry with me that I didn't just agree with him. Yes, the CIA killed Kennedy. Well, I later struck up a friendly acquaintanceship. We're not friends, but a friendly acquaintanceship with Bobby Kennedy Jr. And he and I started talking about this one time. And he said something that I told him in response. I said, this is historical. You should write this down because I think the American people need to hear your recollections. He said, on the day that his uncle was killed, November 22nd, 1963, his mom picked him up at school early. It was like 2:30. It was minutes after the assassination. And they drove back to their home in McLean, Virginia. It was called Hickory Hill. It was a glorious, 40-acre spread with a mansion on the top of the hill. And when they pulled into the driveway, his dad was standing there talking to John McCone. John McCone was the director of the CIA. The Kennedys and the McCones were very, very close. They were both devoutly Catholic. And then 6 months earlier, Mrs. McCone died of breast cancer. And the Kennedys were genuinely worried that John McCone might do something to harm himself. And so they had him over to dinner 7 nights a week just to keep an eye on him. And then after dinner, he and Bobby Kennedy Sr. would go swimming together. So Bobby Jr. and his mom pull into the driveway. He gets out of the car. He's walking past his dad and he's looking at his dad. And he hears his dad say to McCone, tell me your people didn't do this. And McCone says, I don't know who did it. He didn't say, wow, of course my people didn't do it. Why would you even ask such a thing like that? He said, I don't know who did it. So he said he always believed it was the CIA. I always believed it was elements of the CIA. But I'm coming up to my most important point. So I have a friend who...
Now it's coming. Now he's telling... Let me just move this back. Now he's gonna tell who were the perpetrators of the JFK assassination.
Is close to the president. And I said to him at the time that the documents were released, about a year ago, I said, thank God that the president finally released the remaining documents. And he said, no, he didn't. I said, yeah, he did. He was compelled by law. Congress passed a law twice compelling the president to release all documents related to the Kennedy assassination. He said, there are 10,000 documents that are never going to be released. And I said, why? And he said, because every single one of them points directly at Israel. And I said, oh man, that's not one that I was thinking of. He says that the Israelis were so angry that A, John Kennedy wouldn't give them nuclear technology. But more importantly, B, he was actively trying to disrupt the Israelis from acquiring nuclear technology. And they decided they had to take him out. I have a couple of things to say.
Damn. Fucking case solved. This fucking guy, he solved the fucking case. He just showed the fucking whole world who the fuck did it. Now, everybody knows it. But Americans are still gonna play dumb. But you heard it from our favorite CIA guy, John Kiriakou. So yeah, bro, I believe this shit, bro. We know who did it, bro.